Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They are not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. That is an excerpt from the ad dub, The Crazy Ones by Apple. And before we can get into why I actually gave you a quick overview of that specific ad, there's something I want to talk about in this episode. And that is, and the reason why I titled this episode, Finding the Elephant in the Room. Now, over the past few episodes, you if you've been following, then you found out we kind of were discussing about the marketplace and being able to carve out your own niche in the marketplace. And I showed you a couple of methods, and so I think this video is actually supposed to come before that one. But the goal here is not to be perfect, but to actually kind of just share what I found valuable information and that is useful. Now, in the previous video, we talked about finding your niche or carving out your niche, and I showed you different ways of actually carving out your niche depending on the level or the category that you choose from. So we started with the 3 core markets, we dug deeper into 2 or 3 levels, and then I showed you how you can actually find an area whereby an area whereby you can specialize in. But the main theory or the reason why we're doing this is so that you can find the big elephant in the room. You see, here's the thing. A lot of businesses, they fail because what they do is they copy other businesses. And here's the thing, you cannot copy other businesses and expect to succeed because here's the thing, everyone else is actually doing the same thing. And so you have to be different. So instead of copying other businesses, you want to find an area or a problem that is underserved in that niche or in that kind of line of business. And so you find instead of choosing an area that is highly competitive, you can still choose that area, but find an area in that highly competitive area that is underserved, an area whereby the problems are still there. There's a major problem in that gap where nobody else is seeing. So you're kind of looking for the most obvious problem that is there that no one else is looking at, or that no one else is addressing, or that no one else has addressed adequately enough to actually solve it. And so once you nail that area, that is the big elephant in the room. So if you're able to find that big elephant in the room, you can be able to differentiate yourself, and then you can pivot using that point. And so the goal here is for you to actually find that elephant in the room. And so even as you're searching for the niche area you're supposed to, you want to focus on, even as you're searching for the area that you think that will be better served with you or with your program or with your ad or with your YouTube or whatever it is that you're trying to do, whatever business you're trying to create, whatever expert business you're trying to focus on or building, once you find that area, that is the area that you need to actually focus on and actually plant your flag and become the main voice in that area. I'm going to give you an example. Now, I'm going to talk from a background from the marketing niche, and I'm sure and I'll even give examples in some of the other niches that you know about or some of the other careers that you can use or you can relate with. You see, here's the thing. When I was starting off as marketing about a few years ago, you would find that there's a lot of blogs about SEO. You would find there's a guy called Matthew Woodward, there's a guy called Neil Patel. And so there are so many guys who are talking about SEO. And so if you wanted comprehensive information, you would find Neil Patel. He was like an encyclopedia of SEO marketing and any other kind of marketing, online marketing. And so if you wanted a library for marketing online, then that would be the guy to go to. I think their website at that time was called QuickSprout. But if you wanted the technical information and the know-how information, there was this guy called Matthew Woodward. And that guy was so good at it, he would actually give you step-by-step instructions of how to actually do SEO for your website and actually share the results of what he's doing and how it's working for him. But then even in that market, another guy came in and his name is Brian Dean. And I'm not sure if he's still there, but he started a website called Backlinko. Now, we're not talking about websites here. It can be YouTube, it can be a podcast, it can be social media, whatever it is, but the principles apply. So what he did here is he found the big elephant in the room. And after working with some of these gurus, or after studying some of these gurus, he found there's a huge niche or a huge gap in the area of creating backlinks. And so what he did is he went and created a resource, a web resource, or even a channel whereby he talked about finding backlinks and how to acquire backlinks and how to get the right backlinks for his website. And that in itself exploded. And he became an authority or the main go-to guy or the main expert when it comes to getting backlinks for your website. Now, that is one way of doing it. Now, if you're doing, now I'll give you another example in the health section. You can find there's a lot of people who are talking about food and nutrition and whatnot. But then there's this guy called Dr. Sebi, and he talked about how to find the right herbs and curing diseases using herb remedies. And then he became the main authority in that area when it comes to talking about healing diseases through herbs. And then you find there are so many other people who are doing different things, but what they did is they did not come up with something new and they did not copy what is already working in that niche. What they did was they found the main gaps in a specific area that already exist, and then they conquered that space and became the authority therein. And when you do that, so essentially what they did was they found the big elephant in the room and they conquered that elephant and then became the authority in that area. And so the goal here, even for finding out the current niche that you want to serve or for finding out the place that you want to serve, is for you to find the big elephant in the room. Now, the previous episode showed you how to actually do it, where we talked about the 3 core markets and carving out your niche. But the main idea here is for you to find the big elephant in the room, capitalize on it, and become the authority in solving that major problem in that area. And when you do that, competition becomes superfluous. When you become the authority solving a problem that no one else seems to have never noticed but has always been staring you in the face, then you become the genius or become the authority or the expert in that area. And this is what Apple did. So going back to the example of Apple didn't compete with other computer markets about creating new computers or finding new ways of creating computers. What Apple did was they came up with a tagline that stands for what they think. And we're going to talk about this later on about finding out your why or the things that you believe in. But what they did is, the inference here is that Apple found out the people they wanted to talk to, the people they wanted to market to, are people who think different, who ask different questions and potentially change the world. And if you use Steve Jobs' own words, what he said was you always had to be a little different to buy an Apple computer. And so what Apple did is they did compete with the other companies, with the other computer markets on the same wavelength, so to speak. What they did was they found the biggest underserved area, the biggest problem area, they found the elephant that was in the room. And so when they came to making mobile phones or iPhones, so they took a different approach. So instead of making just another mobile phone, making it smart and packing it full of all these shiny features and hardware, like a high resolution built-in camera, emails and whatnot, what Apple did was they noticed a big problem in the current smartphone market, and that was the operating system and the user interface for actually using the mobile phones. And so what they did, they invested highly in creating a more reliable operating system and a more intuitive user interface, which made it a lot easier for people to use their mobile phones effectively. And so what they did, I remember watching this YouTube guy and he said something that really stuck with me. The goal of technology is for it to disappear and for you to be effective in what you do. And so what Apple did, and the reason why Apple is so popular, is because whenever you use an Apple device, the technology disappears. You don't even notice it is there because you're so focused in doing what you want to do. And so that is what they did. So if you can be able to identify the biggest elephant in the room, in whatever niche area, in whatever core market you're serving, that is where you can actually plant your flag and become the expert and become the main authority in that area. And so that is the goal here. So I hope you keep searching on. If you haven't found out, it's okay. You can still learn a bit about it. But this one, it's an area where it requires at least some level of familiarity with the area that you are kind of focusing on. And so you cannot be specifically new. Others, it will take you some time. That is why most entrepreneurs don't make it on their first businesses, because it takes some time where they can find an area that is underserved. They can find the biggest thorn in their thigh. Now, once you find that big elephant in the room, that is where you can start planting your flag and you can grow from there. You can become an expert in that area. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.